I know it sounds ridiculous, but I rented a boyfriend for New Year's Eve. Not in a sketchy way. No escort stuff. More like emergency emotional support actor. There's a whole subreddit for it, apparently. And yes, I was desperate enough to go there. Here's the thing. My entire family decided to have a reunion/holiday getaway in upstate New York, complete with snow, matching pajamas, and passive-aggressive comments over charcuterie. My cousins are all married, engaged, or popping out babies. Meanwhile, I'm the only gay guy in the family who hasn't brought someone home since college. And last year, my Aunt Lisa cornered me with, "You still single? Or just keeping him a secret?" I panicked and said, "No, I'm dating someone. He's just busy. He's a music teacher." Why I chose music teacher? I don't know. It just flew out of my mouth. I don't even know any music teachers. Anyway, fast forward 3 months, and suddenly that imaginary boyfriend, Reed, was being invited to the cabin for NYE. I had no way out. So I did what any stupid, lonely, mildly dramatic person would do. I hired someone to play the part. His name was Julian. He wasn't a music teacher. He wasn't even pretending to be one, at first. His email said he'd done improv, worked some off-Broadway stuff, and once played a charming husband in a long-running soap opera that my grandma actually watches. Which, yeah, felt too perfect to be real. We met for coffee the week before the trip. I had no expectations, just prayed he'd show up on time and not be a total weirdo. He wasn't. He was unsettlingly good-looking. Julian had this effortless way about him, dark, slightly messy hair, thoughtful eyes, a quick smile that felt rehearsed but still hit something soft in my chest. He was tall in a would reach things for you in the kitchen kind of way, and dressed like someone who knew exactly how cuff jeans were supposed to work. "Let me guess," he said when we sat down. "You need a boyfriend who's charming, attentive, and convincing enough that your mom will cry and your ex will question everything." I blinked. Yeah, pretty much." He sipped his coffee. "You've come to the right place." I should have walked away. I should have realized that this whole thing had disaster written all over it. But instead, I laughed. And 30 minutes later, we had a full plan. Backstory, inside jokes, even a how we met script involving a misdialed number and a shared Uber. And so, 4 days later, Julian was sitting beside me in my car on the icy road upstate, humming along to a Christmas playlist like he actually belonged in my life. "You okay?" he asked at one point, glancing over. I nodded, gripping the steering wheel. "Yeah, just nervous." He smiled. "Don't worry, I'm great with moms and aunts, especially drunk ones." We pulled up to the cabin just after dark. Lights twinkled from the windows, smoke curling from the chimney, the whole thing looking like a goddamn postcard. Julian reached over and squeezed my knee. "Showtime!" My family swarmed the driveway. Hugs, snow boots, my mom crying before we were even inside. And Julian? He slid into the role like he'd been born for it. "Oh, you must be Reed," my Aunt Lisa gushed. Julian smiled warmly. "Hi, you must be the aunt with the famous lemon bars." She looked stunned. "Oh my God, he remembers. You told him about me." I nodded, dazed. "Yeah, of course." Inside, Julian helped with luggage, complimented the tree, offered to slice brie for the charcuterie board. He knew everyone's names within 5 minutes. My cousins, kids were hanging off him like monkeys. Even my dad, who once said he didn't get the whole gay thing, was laughing with him by the fire. Later, in our shared room, because of course we had to share a room, I sat on the bed and tried to breathe. Julian walked in, pulling off his sweater. "They're sweet," he said. "Your mom gave me the 'I hope you're treating my son right' look. She's fierce." I nodded slowly. "You're really good at this." He looked over his shoulder. "Thanks. But I don't just want to be good. I want to be believable." Then he winked, and something fluttered in my stomach that had nothing to do with nerves. I lay awake that night, listening to his steady breathing just a few feet away. And I thought, just for a second, what if this wasn't fake? But it was. Of course it was. Right? The next morning, I woke up to the smell of coffee and the sound of Julian's voice downstairs. Not just his voice, his laugh. That easy, unforced kind of laugh that made you feel like you were in on the joke, even if you hadn't heard it. I stayed in bed a minute longer, staring at the ceiling, trying to reset my brain. This was pretend. This was acting. He was literally doing a job. I couldn't afford to read into it. Still, something about hearing him out there, probably charming my mom while wearing the flannel I'd picked out for him, made my chest feel uncomfortably full. When I finally came down, Julian had already made himself at home, standing barefoot in the kitchen, sipping coffee, chatting with my sister like they'd known each other for years. "There he is," he said, spotting me. "I saved you a cup, babe." "Babe?" my sister echoed, smirking. I shot him a look, but Julian just handed me the mug, cool as ever. "I told her about your work," he added, turning back to my sister. "The graphic design stuff. Your ex didn't appreciate it nearly enough." My sister snorted. "God, don't get me started on Evan." Julian leaned in, like it was the juiciest gossip he'd ever heard. "Wait, Evan is the one who ghosted him after Valentine's Day, right? With the weird little mustache?" I blinked. "When did I tell him that?" My sister laughed way too hard. "Yes, the French waiter look." Julian winked at me. "I listened, and that was the problem." He did listen. Too well. He'd absorbed every detail of the fake story I fed him, and somehow filled in the blanks with stuff I barely remembered telling anyone. And he wasn't just playing a role, he was becoming a version of the boyfriend I wished I had. The day passed in a blur of sledding, family photos, and Julian somehow being good at every game my family threw at him. He helped my niece build a snow fort. He held my dad's attention through 2 rounds of chess. And after dinner, when the fireplace crackled and everyone was full of wine and stories, he draped his arm around my shoulders on the couch. I tensed for a second, just enough for him to notice. "You okay?" he whispered, voice low so no one else would hear. "Yeah," I murmured. "Just weird." He leaned in a little. "You want me to back off?" That should have been my cue, my chance to draw the line. But I didn't. "No," I said. "It's fine." His fingers brushed against mine, subtle but steady. Not part of the script, just there. Later, when we went up to the room, Julian peeled off his sweater, revealing a long-sleeve undershirt clinging to his chest, and turned to me casually. "Your family's kind of amazing." I sat on the edge of the bed, still processing. "They're a lot. You handled it well." He smiled. "I'm good with people." "You're good with pretending," I said before I could stop myself. He looked over at me. "Is that what you think I'm doing?" I hesitated. "Isn't it?" Julian's smile faded a little. Not gone, just quieter. "I don't fake everything." We didn't talk much after that. We changed, brushed teeth, climbed under the covers on opposite sides of the bed. But that silence? It wasn't the awkward kind. It was the heavy, humming kind. The kind where you feel too much but don't have the words. At some point, I turned over, half asleep, and felt Julian shift behind me. Not pressing close, not making a move. Just warm, present, and in the dark, I found myself whispering, "Thank you." He murmured something back I couldn't quite hear, but his fingers brushed my hand just once. That night, I didn't dream, but when I woke up to the feeling of him still in bed beside me, arm barely grazing mine, the line between pretending and something else had already started to blur, and I wasn't sure I wanted to fix it. I woke up to the sound of snow falling. I know that's not technically a sound, but if you've ever been somewhere that quiet, surrounded by woods, everything blanketed in white, you know what I mean. It's like the world goes on mute, and you start to hear things you usually don't, like the shift of sheets, the steady rhythm of someone breathing beside you. Julian was still asleep. He lay on his side, face soft and slack, one hand curled near his chest. His hair was a mess. Somehow, even that looked intentional, like he was in the middle of a magazine shoot for cozy but devastatingly hot fake boyfriends. I watched him for too long, told myself it was curiosity, research, observing the method actor in his natural habitat. But then he stirred, and I panicked, pretended I was just reaching for my phone. "Morning," he said, voice low and rough with sleep. "Hey," I cleared my throat. "You snore, by the way." Julian smirked without opening his eyes. "That's slander." Downstairs, I could already hear my mom banging around in the kitchen. Bacon. Coffee. My family's never been subtle about their love language. By the time we joined them, the kitchen was loud with chatter and smells that made me instantly 10 years old again. Julian slid into it like he'd been coming to our holiday trips for years, offering to set the table, buttering toast for my niece, telling my dad that he almost burned water once when asked about his cooking skills. I watched my family melt for him in real time, watched him laugh and talk like this was real life, like we were real, and I knew I shouldn't have let it feel good, but it did. Later we went for a walk, just the two of us. It was cold and crisp, sun high above the trees, the snow glowing around us. I hadn't planned it to feel like a date, but it did. "I feel like I owe you more money," I said as we wandered down a trail behind the cabin. Julian gave me a sideways look. "Is that your way of saying I'm doing a good job? I mean, you're making me look like boyfriend of the year material. My mom's already planning our wedding in her head." He laughed, kicking at a pile of snow. "Want me to tone it down?" I paused. "No, just... I didn't expect you to be so good at this." Julian slowed, letting the silence stretch. Then he said, "You know I'm not trying to mess with you, right?" That caught me off guard. "What?" "This whole thing," he said, still walking, but slower now. "I'm not trying to blur lines just to make you uncomfortable." I stopped. "You're not making me uncomfortable." Julian turned to face me. His expression had shifted. No more playful sarcasm, no fake charm, just honesty. "Then what am I doing?" he asked, voice quieter now. I didn't know how to answer, because I didn't know the answer myself. I opened my mouth. Then a snowball hit me square in the chest. Julian blinked. "Wasn't me." We both turned to see my younger cousins at the edge of the woods, cackling, already making more ammo. Julian grinned. "We'll finish this later." And just like that, he took off running after them, laughing like a maniac, snow flying everywhere. I stood there for a moment, heart hammering, before chasing after him. That night after dinner, my mom pulled me aside. "I like him," she said softly. "He's good for you." I didn't know what to say, just nodded, heart tight. Back in our room, I was quiet. Julian sat on the edge of the bed, pulling off his socks. "Hey," he said gently, sensing the shift. "Too much?" I shook my head. "No, just processing." Julian watched me for a beat, then said, "We can take a step back, if you need to." The weird thing was, I didn't want to step back. I wanted to lean forward. But that was the part one wasn't ready to say out loud yet. So instead I asked, "Would it be weird if we watched something? Just something dumb, like an episode of The Office?" Julian smiled. "Not weird at all." So we curled up under the blanket on the small twin bed, laptop propped on a pillow, and for 30 quiet minutes, everything felt strangely right. It wasn't the pretending that messed with me. It was how easy it was to forget we were pretending at all. It's funny how quickly the brain adjusts to something new, how what's fake can start to feel real if you sit in it long enough. By the third day of the trip, I caught myself reaching for Julian's hand without even thinking. Not for the show, not because someone was watching, just because it felt natural. And he didn't pull away, he just laced his fingers through mine like it was something we did every day. New Year's Eve crept up quietly, hidden behind snowstorms and board games and my mom's endless trays of cookies. By mid-afternoon, the cabin was buzzing, champagne chilling in snowbanks outside, the fireplace roaring, everyone changing into dress clothes that would inevitably be swapped out for pajamas by 10 p.m. Julian walked out of the bathroom in a black button-down that I hadn't seen him wear before. I was halfway through trying to roll up the sleeves on my own shirt, and when I looked up, Yeah, it hit me. Hard. He looked ridiculous. Like one of those catalog models where the caption would say something dumb like rugged elegance or winter formal chic. He caught me staring. What? Nothing, I said quickly, focusing on my sleeves. You just clean up well. Julian smirked. You trying to seduce me in front of your aunt and uncle? I rolled my eyes, but my ears burned. As we made our way downstairs, I heard someone whistle. My cousin Max, of course. Damn, he said. You two look like a couple from an Apple commercial. Julian wrapped an arm around my shoulders like it was instinct. Well, we do share an iCloud. Laughter. More fake backstory, more pretending. But as the night wore on, something changed. It was subtle. The way Julian looked at me when I wasn't talking. The way his hand found the small of my back when I leaned too close to the fire. The way his gaze lingered a half-second longer every time I laughed. After dinner, people started drinking more. The music got louder. My cousins' kids ran around with glow sticks. My mom pulled out party hats and noisemakers. Julian stood beside me in the corner of the living room, nursing a glass of wine. Big night, I said, nudging him. He glanced over. You nervous? Nervous? He leaned in slightly. Midnight's coming, I blinked. Right, the kiss. You don't have to, he said quickly. We can play it cool. Go for a forehead kiss. Or the OL, strategic hug. I looked at him. Do you want to? Julian paused. I don't mind it. That was the thing. He said it with that same even, unreadable tone. I couldn't tell if he was being kind or careful or honest. But I knew one thing. I did want to. And that scared the hell out of me. The countdown started right before midnight. My family huddled in the living room, tipsy and loud, someone popping a bottle of Prosecco too early. I stood beside Julian, heart hammering, pretending I was calm. 10, 9, 8. He glanced at me, his expression unreadable. 7, 6, 5. We were shoulder to shoulder, close enough to feel his breath. 4, 3. Sam, he said softly, almost lost in the noise. 2, 1. Happy New Year. Noise. Cheers. Poppers going off. And then Julian turned and kissed me. Not a peck. Not a stage kiss. He kissed me like we were alone. Like none of it was pretend. Like he'd been waiting for an excuse and finally found one. It wasn't wild or showy. It was gentle, slow. His hand on the side of my neck, steady. His lips warm, familiar. And when we pulled apart, I couldn't move. Because everything in me was yelling that I should say something. But I didn't. I just stood there, stunned, while Julian smiled softly and whispered, Happy New Year. The room spun around us. Music, laughter, family yelling and clinking glasses. And for the first time all week, I felt completely untethered, like the script was gone, like we were on a stage with no lines left to read. And I didn't know what came next. The rest of New Year's Eve passed in a blur. People hugged. Toasts were made. My mom cried for no reason other than, it's just so nice to have everyone together. The usual. But I barely processed any of it. Not really, because every few minutes, my brain would go back to that kiss. The one that didn't feel like pretending. The one Julian gave me like it meant something. We didn't talk about it. Not then. He stayed close, smiling, joining the celebration, playing his part. But he didn't bring it up. And neither did I. Not until we were back in the room. The door had barely closed behind us when I finally asked, So what was that? Julian paused mid-shirt removal, then straightened slowly. The kiss? Yeah. He sat on the edge of the bed. You didn't want me to? No, yes, I wanted to. I ran a hand through my hair, pacing a little. It just didn't feel like part of the job. Julian looked up at me, expression unreadable. It wasn't. I stopped pacing. So what was it? He let out a breath. Honestly, I've been trying to figure that out myself. I sank onto the bed beside him, the mattress dipping slightly between us. The room was quiet. Too quiet. I think I got a little too good at pretending, he said after a moment. Or maybe I stopped pretending somewhere along the way. My heart thudded. Julian, he turned toward me, finally meeting my eyes. Look, I know this is all a mess. We made a deal. I was supposed to come here, play the part, make you look good. And I did. But somewhere between your mom's banana bread and your awful attempt at Scrabble, hey, I stopped feeling like I was acting. I swallowed hard. So what now? Julian didn't answer right away, just stared at me, like he was still trying to work it out in real time. Then he said, quietly, that depends on you. That silence after? It wasn't heavy. It was thick with possibility. I sat back, heart racing, feeling like I was standing on the edge of something without knowing what came after the fall. You're not just saying this because you feel sorry for me or want to wrap things up clean, right? I asked. Julian smiled, faint but real. Sam, I could have left the act behind when we got to the room. I didn't have to kiss you. I wanted to. I looked at him for a long moment. Then, before I could think too hard, I leaned in and kissed him again. Not like before. Slower. More certain. And when he kissed me back, hand brushing against my jaw, his fingers curling into the back of my neck, it didn't feel confusing anymore. It felt inevitable. We didn't talk much after that. We just crawled under the covers and laid there, close, not touching in that hungry, frantic way I thought would happen. Instead, it was quiet, steady, comforting in a way I hadn't felt in a long time. He turned to me in the dark. You know I wasn't lying about liking your family, right? I smiled. I think they like you more than they like me, Julian chuckled. Probably. We fell asleep like that, shoulder to shoulder, barely any space between us. The tension from the first night replaced with something lighter, something warmer. The next morning, I woke up before him. Snow was still falling outside. The cabin creaked in that way old places do when they settle. And beside me, Julian was still asleep, hand half tangled in the blanket, hair wild. For a split second, I thought, I don't want this to end. Not the trip, not the lie, not him. But that was the thing. It wasn't a lie anymore. And that scared me more than anything. Packing up was always the worst part of these family trips. Normally, I'd toss everything into a bag in 10 minutes and get out before the goodbyes got too long or too emotional. But this time, I moved slow, maybe on purpose. Julian was quiet too. Not distant, just thoughtful. Like me, he seemed unsure what we were walking into once we left the safe little snow globe we'd built together. We hadn't really talked about what came next, and it was starting to feel like we should. As we loaded our bags into the trunk, my mom came out with leftover banana bread wrapped in foil and tears in her eyes. I hope we see you again soon, Julian, she said, pulling him into a hug. You're part of the family now. Julian hugged her back. You're going to make me cry, Donna. She wiped her eyes. I'm serious. I've never seen Sam like this before. Like what? I didn't ask, just gave her a tight smile and hugged her goodbye. The ride back was quiet at first. The only sound the tires crunching snow and the soft music Julian queued up from his phone. He didn't say much, just tapped his fingers on the steering wheel while I stared out at the passing trees. Finally, I said it. So what now? Julian glanced over. You tell me. I shifted in my seat, nervous energy buzzing in my hands. Do you do this a lot? The pretend boyfriend thing? No, he said. This was a first. I looked at him. Why'd you say yes? Julian was quiet for a moment. Then, I thought it would be fun. Low stakes. A weekend gig with a cute guy and free food. But then, it wasn't low stakes. I stared out the window. Yeah, I know what you mean. He looked at me again. Sam, if this was just a job for you, if you want to end it here and go back to life as it was, I'll respect that. There was something in his voice that felt way too vulnerable for someone who made a career out of pretending. But I didn't want to pretend anymore. I don't want to end it, I said. Julian nodded slowly, his jaw tense. Good, because I don't either. We sat in that small silence, warm and charged, and I felt it. That flicker of something new. Something real. I turned to him. So what does that mean? He smiled. It means maybe we start over. For real this time. No fake names, no backstories, no charades. Okay, I said. Let's start over. Julian glanced sideways, then held out his hand across the center console. I'm Julian, he said with a grin. I used to act. I still suck at cooking, and I'm very into this guy that first just spent 4 days pretending to date. I laughed, heart thumping as I shook his hand. Sam, I replied, graphic designer, mediocre sledder, and apparently terrible at telling real feelings apart from fake ones. Julian kept holding my hand. Not anymore, he said, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like something new was beginning. Not a lie, not a performance, just us. We didn't define anything on the ride back to the city. There wasn't a moment where we turned to each other and said, okay, we're dating now. It was quieter than that, easier, the kind of shift you don't notice until you're already halfway into it. Julian crashed at my place that night, not because we had some grand plan, but because it was late and we were tired, and when I offered, he just said, yeah, that'd be nice. We ordered takeout, watched a movie. He fell asleep on the couch with his head on my shoulder, and I didn't move for an hour because it felt too good to ruin. By the time the weekend was over, he still hadn't left. And neither of us brought it up. We didn't have to. Something real had settled between us, quiet and steady, and I think we both knew that pretending had stopped being necessary a long time ago. A few weeks later, we were walking back from the grocery store, arms full of snacks and wine for a movie night that had clearly become a routine. Julian stopped in front of my building, shifting his bags. So, he said casually, how would your family feel if I came back next year and wasn't pretending? I blinked. You want to go back? He shrugged, smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. They have great cookies, I nudged him. You just want to see my mom again, he grinned. I really do. Also, I like that version of us, the cozy cabin, snowed-in version. But I like this version more. I looked at him, heart full in a way I hadn't expected this soon. I like both, I said. But yeah, this one feels better. He kissed me right there on the sidewalk. Quick, sure, like it was the most natural thing in the world. And it was. Because somehow, the fake boyfriend I hired for 4 days of emotional damage control became the person I couldn't imagine not having in my life. People talk about love stories starting with sparks or chance meetings, or years of slow burn buildup. Mine started with a lie, a rented boyfriend, a favor wrapped in snow and family and carefully rehearsed glances. But what came after? That part was real. Maybe the most real thing I've ever felt.